Hi, Gingerhawk here with a quick video about the ice farm. So this is going to be a video not so much on how to use it, but more on how it actually works. So if you get any problems with it or if it breaks, this is more of a guide on how to fix it. So if we quickly go inside, I'll show you the rough guide on how to use it. So obviously a player comes in here. We've got some lights on the floor just to let them know whether the farm is actually actively in use or not, and hopefully if nobody's here this should be green to say that nobody's using it and yeah, it's safe to come and use. Because this has got flying machines on it, if you leave this running and fly out of the area, unload it, you could end up with flying machines halfway across and then they're going to get stuck and they're going to need sort of resetting back to the beginning again, which is all sorts of pain. So hopefully people turn the farm off before they leave. And when they do turn it on, obviously they're going to get the red lights. So they're going to come up here. And again, we've got a sign there to say, please make sure you turn the farm off. So it's in plain view, so I hope they remember to do so. So they flick the switch on here and this powers this block below here. And obviously that is going to flick the lights over, so the farm is now showing red rather than green. So when they come down to leave the farm, it's very, very clear that the farm is active. So if I show you how this actually works, I've got a little staff access bit here, so let's close that behind us. So let's go around this side and come into the main part of the farm. So obviously you can get access to all the flying machines in here. I'll explain that in a little while. If we just jump up onto this circuit here, so there's our light block up above. I think I'm just going to go into spectator mode to try and make this easier. Can I do that? No, I can't. I've got chat turned off. Okay, never mind. So what we've got here is, this is the block that the switch is on top of above. And when that's flicked on, oh, see the flying machine's just set off there now, so that's quite handy timing. This block gets powered obviously, and there is a block just underneath it here with some redstone on it, which goes off in two different directions. So first direction is over here, so it just literally powers this block when it's switched on, it comes down here, round to the side and drops down here. And what we'll do is we'll break this quickly so I can show you. Repeaters bring it all the way along here, and this one is for the lights. So this is quite a simple circuit. All this is doing is when the farm is turned on and powered, power comes up to here, hits this repeater which powers this block. Once this block's powered, this torch obviously goes out, and this is the torch that's actually firing up the green lights above. So as soon as someone turns the farm on, the green lights go off. Coming off of this torch, we've just got a simple redstone line that goes into a repeater that powers a second block. And on top of that block, we've got another redstone torch. And that one, when we actually power this line, obviously this depowers, so the redstone torch comes on and these lights light up and the red lights come on above. And obviously when they turn it off, this just flicks over into reverse. So it's just quite a simple toggle circuit. So nothing too complicated about that one. Let's just jump back up here again. I'll replace that block in a second. The second part of this line, so the one that comes this way, comes down here to this redstone torch. And when the farm is turned off, this redstone torch will invert, so it will be powered. And that again goes off in two directions. So once up here, this is a dual EFO hopper clock. And again, I'll come to explain that in a second. And the other thing it will do is it will power the line going this way, and this goes around to repeaters, goes into a repeater here and into the side of a comparator. The reason we have this is because coming out of all this timing circuit and through this pulse converter, this comes out into the farm. So at the moment that they switch the farm off, this line will be powered, and this comparator will then have more power coming into the side of it than coming out of the timing circuits. And the moment they turn this off, it doesn't matter if the timing circuit is still finishing and fires a signal down, it won't get through this comparator now because it's locked by this higher signal to one side, which is why there's a one redstone gap between this repeater just to drop the power level down from 15 to 14. And obviously this is coming out at 15 at the side of the comparator, so it will never get any further and won't trigger the flying machines. So if they do flick it off and leave, that won't accidentally start it off. This has also got the timing on this set to 2 ticks rather than 1. I found 1 tick wasn't enough to actually reliably fire the farm, so I put it on 2 ticks just to hold the signal up a little bit longer, just to fire off all the flying machines. So that's that side. On this side, now that this is actually switched on, this is obviously dropped down, these 2 repeaters here are actually powering these pistons, which is actually freezing the etho hopper clock. So it's locking these pistons up so they can't go anywhere. And again, as soon as you turn the farm on, this is inverting, dropping this off, and then this is moving freely. So we've got 2 hopper clocks here. So the first one is on this side, and it's a pretty standard, well, it's a completely standard etho hopper clock where you've got 2 hoppers, and you can see the items are moving backwards and forwards between the 2 hoppers here. So this is counting down. I think I've got 1 stack and 60 items in here, which works out to be just under about a minute or so. And what's happening is that's going backwards and forwards. There we go, as you can see there, that just triggered. So as this hopper emptied here, it's filling up again now, but as it emptied, there was a comparator output from this, which is obviously dropped as soon as this emptied out. And what that's doing is these comparators are locking this second etho hopper clock on this side. And again, there's items moving backwards and forwards. So at the moment there's 3 in this side and 3 in this side. And what happens is the timing of these basically multiplies together. So you've got about just over a minute on this side, and there's 2 lots of items on this side. So it's about 6 times that. And it will cycle around that twice. So there's about 20 minutes. Every 20 minutes or so, we'll get a signal out of this thing to set the farm off. And so it's not too complicated to build. It's just 2 etho hopper clocks next to each other with 2 comparators feeding one into the other. You can find more detail on that if somebody needs it. And then what we've got coming out of this is this hopper here. Once this drops down to 0, so once all of these items move across to this side, this hopper is then empty. So this is the one we're using to trigger the farm. So off of the back of this, we've got the usual comparator that comes off of the etho hopper clock. At the moment, it's got items in it, so it's powering this block here, which is powering the redstone and powering the piston. So both of these are currently powered at the moment because they've both got blocks in it, so they're both fighting over pushing this block. But at the moment this empties, this power will drop down to 0. This block won't be powered anymore, this redstone will drop. This piston won't have any power to it, and the other side will be able to push it across, which has obviously already happened here. But the other thing that happens on here is once this empties, this power drops down, this block is no longer powered, which means this torch will invert that and come on, and it will go through the relay and hit this block here, and will depower the torch because we've got a signal coming in now, so it will drop the power to that torch. That will in turn drop the power to this comparator, which will in turn drop the power to this piston. So this block will drop back down again. And as I say, that happens momentarily when this hopper empties. So when that block drops back down again, this is actually it's kind of like a pulse converter. So we have a long pulse on this side. What we want on this side is just a very short pulse output to start the farm off, and we only want one. We don't want it left on for long periods of time. So as soon as something comes in here, this will fire very, very briefly. So when this comes up, this will all drop down, the piston and the block will drop, and then this circuit is basically fired, primed, ready for the next time to fire. Then what will happen is we'll have another cycle on this side until a block makes its way back over this to this hopper. Once one gets back in here again, it's about a minute to 2 minutes, I think. This will obviously power again, which will depower this block. Will power this block. The torch will go out. This will drop down. This torch will light up, which will power this comparator here. It will power the piston again, but at the same time it does that, it powers this block, which is currently down here. So that's for just enough time for it to power this repeater. So this will power the block, which will put power into the repeater, and then at the same time power the piston, which will push the block up out of the way. So we get one quick pulse through this repeater here. That in turn comes round into this repeater, and this is the one that we've had to set to 2 ticks to make sure there's enough time on it to fire the farm off. that will hit the comparator, and as I say, as long as the farm is still switched on, we won't have the safety circuit on the side here, so that will then power this redstone line into another repeater here, and then this fans out to both sides to hit these other repeaters and power all of these note blocks on the side. And if the flying machine is over this side, then next to these note blocks underneath here, I'll just quickly peer around without falling off, the observers will be parked between those obsidian blocks. So we can see the observers are over there. They'll fly back across and park under here. So as soon as this fires, these will all power at the same time, and the flying machine will go off across the farm. At the same time that happens, we've also got a redstone circuit running around the whole outside of the farm, because if the flying machines are at the other end of the farm, like they are now, then we need to bring this down to the other end and basically do the exact same thing down this end. So we'll bring this all the way around, it'll come into here, and again it will fan out to all of the note blocks on here, and you can see obviously the observer is directly next to it. That will fire off all the pistons and send everything back down the farm again. And then the other thing you'll notice on here, if I come around this side, is down the side of the farm we have another bunch of flying machines. Now what these have got on them is they've actually got Frostwalker 1 boots on them. So this is actually to seed some ice into the farm and actually make things a little bit quicker. So if I can get around here quickly, hopefully the farm doesn't fire while I'm in it. When this lot all fires across, they'll all start moving across the ice, and this observer on the side here will move along, and every time it moves it will fire a pulse, because it's moved across, it's updated, and it will fire a little redstone pulse. That will actually come past these repeaters here, so they're going to fire all the way down in order. And again, these are all set to 1 tick. You can make them longer, but there's not really any need. And this will basically power this flying machine here. It will set this off, and this will go across the farm in this direction, so from one side to the other. It will drag these Frostwalker boots with it, and what will happen is when this large flying machine goes across, it will push down, so these pistons are going to push down all of these ice blocks into the farm below so they can be harvested. And we've got water blocks on both sides, so where we've got all these stairs running around the outside, as soon as these push down, these are all going to fill with water all the way across. This whole pan is going to fill up with water. Now if we left that like that, pretty much no ice is going to form. It's going to form very, very, very slowly. So what we're doing with the Frostwalker boots, and this is based on, I should mention, on an Ilmango design, these Frostwalker boots will make their way across the farm, and as they pass over the top, they will temporarily freeze each of these water source blocks. And the reason we want to do that is because if there is a solid block next to a water source block in an ice area, it's got a much higher chance of actually generating ice. So we're going to seed a bunch of temporary ice blocks across the farm, and then we've got a better chance of getting a permanent block. Those temporary ones will dissipate very, very quickly, but it should be enough to get us a few dozen solid blocks, and then each of those few dozen solid blocks will actually have ice form around them, and then it's ready for the next cycle. And then, as I say, the timers I've got set on those hopper clocks should run about every 18 to 20 minutes. I think it's just under 20 minutes actually, so even if someone AFKs at this thing, it's only going to fire about 3 times an hour. So even though there's a lot of flying machines on here, it's still pretty server friendly. So there'll be a little bit of pressure on the server for a very, very short amount of time. As I say, it only takes 10 seconds, 15 seconds for these flying machines to make their way across. And once they're settled down again, they'll sit there for nearly 20 minutes. I don't think there's anything else on the mechanics of the farm to cover on this. I mean, there's all the usage stuff that I've got in another video to tell you how to use it, but that's not really important for this video. So yeah, that's all I can think of for now. So if you've got anything you would like me to add to this, any questions, anything like that, drop it in the comments and I will include them. Thanks very much, guys. Cheers. Hi guys, one little thing that I forgot to add when I was talking about building this farm. Each of these sets of Frostwalker boots are actually sat on top of a trapdoor. That's actually very, very important because sometimes the farm will look like this. And the reason it looks like this is because the pistons have gone down to push limit and it can't be moved down any further. So we need to go down below and mine the ice. It's perfectly fine being left like this, and it'll just push down anything that's actually created. But obviously you're going to get very little new ice created when it looks like this. But when it does look like this, obviously these Frostwalker boots need to be able to move across the ice without dropping down. So the easiest way of doing that, rather than just having blocks on this side to hold them up and then relying on ice actually being here and not water, is to put a trapdoor underneath so they're stuck to this sticky slime block, and then the Frostwalker boots are sat on top of that. So as they move across, they'll just be held up by that, so there's no danger of them dropping into any of these holes. So they'll move backwards and forwards quite freely. And I think that's the only thing I need to add for that. So yeah, there you go. Thanks again.